Jesus cursed a tree for not having fruit. Then Mark adds one detail almost as an afterthought. It wasn't even the season for figs. Mark 11:13 says Jesus saw the fig tree in leaf, went looking for fruit, found nothing because it wasn't the season. Read that slowly. Something here feels deeply uncomfortable. This isn't simply about laziness or hypocrisy. It's about a tree encountering an expectation that, by Mark's own words, wasn't naturally possible in that season. Most explanations rush past that tension. They say the leaves promised fruit. Maybe, but Mark deliberately tells us the timing. Why include a detail that makes the story harder? And that forces a different question. Was Jesus condemning the tree itself, or was the tree becoming a sign of something much larger? Because you've probably experienced something similar. Someone expected you to be ready before you were ready, to have answers, strength, healing, or certainty you simply didn't have yet. Not because you refused to grow, not because you didn't care. Sometimes the honest answer is painfully simple. It wasn't your season yet. But Mark doesn't leave us staring at the tree. He immediately takes us into the temple. Jesus enters, sees what is happening, and overturns the tables. The tree was out of season. The temple wasn't. It had every resource, every century of preparation, every prophet warning it what was coming. It had time. The fig tree didn't. Isaiah had already described God's people as a vineyard that produced disappointing fruit. Jesus wasn't inventing the imagery, he was stepping into an old prophetic language. The tree wasn't guilty, it was a sign. And Isaiah's vineyard makes that clearer. God wasn't merely looking for appearance, he was looking for something the appearance should produce. That changes the question. Maybe the disturbing part isn't that Jesus expected fruit. Maybe it's what happens when something looks ready, but reality tells a completely different story. That's where the story becomes personal. Because sometimes we aren't failing, we're simply being judged by expectations that arrived before our lives were ready to meet them. But the Bible also gives us another uncomfortable truth. There is a time for everything. Not every absence means failure. Sometimes timing is part of the story. So perhaps the fig tree isn't telling you to produce more. Perhaps it's asking something harder. Are you honestly in the season you're pretending you're already in? And Jesus later said, "You will recognize them by their fruits." Notice the difference. He didn't say you'll recognize them by their leaves, appearance, or performance. That's why this story cuts deeper than try harder. It asks whether what people see on you actually matches what's happening inside you when nobody is watching. Maybe that's why Jesus used the tree. It was simple enough to understand, but uncomfortable enough to expose something deeper. Sometimes the real problem isn't what we lack, but what we claim to be. And maybe that's the question worth carrying away. If Jesus came close enough to inspect your life, not your image, what would he actually find there? Because the deepest warning isn't that Jesus expects fruit. It's that one day, when he looks past everything we display, there may be nothing underneath it.